I think it's really easy as an agency owner. There's tons of content creators out there who are saying like, this is the way to do it. Do it this way. If you're not doing it this way, you're a fucking idiot or whatever. And I don't think there is a right way to do it. Like, I think the hard truth and the word of encouragement is the right way to do it is the way that you do it if it works for you. And if if that enables the lifestyle you want and you're able to treat people fairly, or actually, I shouldn't even say treat people fairly. If you're able to run a business that's in line with your values as a person and feel good about that business, and that in the process of running that business that you feel good about and is in alignment with your values, it enables you to live the life that you want to live, like that is the right way to do it.
All right. Hi, everyone. Today we're talking about how most agencies fail, not because the work is bad, but because they don't run like a real business. And this can really affect clients. My name is Marcello. I'm with Symon. We are co-founders of Tennis, a website design and product development company focusing on the B2B market. And today we've got an awesome guest. I'm really excited to jump into this. Eli. So Eli founded and sold 2 companies. You now run a capital and venture studio style digital business. So I'm excited to jump into that. You're not just a consultant, which is exciting. You're more of an operator who's kind of built and scaled agencies yourself. So yeah, welcome. My first question right off the bat is, how do you describe what you do day to day?
Usually I just laugh because it's hard. It's hard to describe. And then I'll pivot quickly to like whatever I feel is most relevant to whoever I'm talking to. So sometimes I own an accounting firm. Sometimes I mess around with Claude more than I should. Sometimes it's a different answer depending on who I'm talking to. But if I'm chatting with someone like in industry, I usually just say I run a series of agency style businesses, and most recently started dabbling with software again. It's a product that I spun out of one of the agencies.
Cool. Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about just your founding, like how you got to where you are now, because you were in the agency world for a little bit, and now you've kind of made this bridge into the venture studio business model, and it's something that I see quite often, and everyone has sort of like a different story of how they got there. So yeah, curious to hear yours.
Yeah, I mean, my first company was a SaaS business back in, it was like 2010. And I went the whole venture backed route. And that business was really instrumental in my story in a couple of funny ways. I mean, as a business, it was an absolute failure, right? Like I built a product. We had all sorts of classic stumblings, technology, co-founders, all sorts of things went awry in the beautiful ways that, first company tends to go awry. But that became the basis for a lot of my learnings. And then in this almost comical turn of events, the business ended up getting bought for like what was very real money for me at the time, and changed my life in that way too. So that was like my initial building block upon which everything else kind of came downstream. I don't think I really learned how to build a business with that one, but I certainly learned what not to do and some valuable business lessons in the process. The next business from there, I bought an e-commerce company that was failing and did my best to turn it around. Spent 4 years learning everything about e-commerce, literally working in a warehouse myself, packing and shipping boxes, learning about inventory management. We had SKUs under management, which was a super nightmare. Don't recommend. E-commerce is not for me, or at least the flavor of e-commerce that I did. And then we ended up basically getting out from underneath that business. We sold it to a private equity firm for essentially what we had in it. And so that was an interesting learning. And then from there, I was like, okay, I want to do something that gives me the cash flow to support the lifestyle that I want for my family. And so that's when I first got into the agency game, started MatterMade, which still exists today. I no longer run MatterMade, but I still own it. And that's a B2B marketing firm, predominantly doing paid media for mid-market private equity backed technology companies. And that's where I think I really started to learn how to do business, air quotes on business, but really started to learn how to run a business, scale a business. That business has been all over the place. Like it's gone from just being me and thinking it was going to be a consulting shop to 40 full-time employees to back down to 5, now back up to 15 or maybe even like 17 now. So, it's run the full gamut, been through a number of cycles, and I'm very grateful for that business and all of the experiences that that's brought and continues to bring. Got into the design world after that, and then that led me to an accounting firm where I was like, "Hey, I'm passionate about all of the." I know it feels like a non sequitur.
Yeah, I'm trying to put that together. Everything else made sense up until that point, but yeah, let's
Yeah,
hear
I
it.
don't have to make the leap so fast. I saw the look on your face, Simon. So let me explain. I knew I wanted to do another agency style business, and I'd removed myself from the day to day on the marketing firm and the design firm. And I was like, okay, well, what am I like passionate about? And realized that I spent a lot of my free time talking shop with other agency owners. And the thing that I get most fired up about is people reverse engineering the life that they want and really making the business a vehicle to get them there. And that ends up becoming a conversation oftentimes about numbers and financial performance. And so somehow I got the wild idea that I wanted to start it didn't start off as something I would describe as an accounting firm. It ended up becoming an accounting firm in practice. But I wanted to help other agency style entrepreneurs create the business that they wanted, and have better financial hygiene. So that became an accounting firm. We're still figuring it out, honestly, like mixed feelings on that whole world and whether or not it's a good fit for me. We have a great team and we're continuing to build the business, but that was a hard left turn at Albuquerque, as Bugs Bunny would say. And so still feeling that out.
Super interesting. So you've been yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, the last thing I would say is it led me though to software again. So we started working with a number of recruiting firms as clients because it turns out they have, complex invoicing, commission tracking, a lot of numbers involved in recruiting and staffing industry. And I saw a pattern where tracking commissions and invoicing clients was complex enough where it was becoming a giant like financial problem, huge accounts receivable, outstanding, and just spreadsheet nightmares. And so decided to solve some of those problems internally for ourselves and thereby for our clients, and then realized there was a broader opportunity. So that's where I'm spending a lot of my time today, is building software.
Yeah, that commission piece alone is giving me flashbacks to managing that on a spreadsheet, which I think most smaller organizations are doing. Like, I don't think there's a lot of software solutions out there for the smaller businesses to manage commission. I think it's all sort of like angled for probably like maybe even enterprise. I don't know if there's that many like mid-market solutions either, actually.
Yeah, it seems, at least in the recruiting space, it seems like it's a vitamin, not a painkiller, up until about 10 to 15 recruiters. And then once you have 10 to 15 recruiters, it starts to become a real headache that they're willing to put budget behind.
Okay, cool. Makes sense. Yeah, so you've been on the business side and the creative side, which is a very unique perspective, I think. Most agencies are typically started by people who are just great at the craft, and inevitably hit a ceiling and can't figure out why. What does stuck agency look like, and why does it happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are off the cuff 2, maybe even 3 big stuck moments that come from folks who come from that, expertise at the craft path, that have to be broken through in order to scale, or at least scale to whatever point they want to, if that is their goal. And a lot of people, I think the caveat that I've had to remind myself of is not everybody wants to scale, and that's totally cool too. But for folks who do want to scale, I think the first big one is getting out of the work themselves, right? Like when I first started MatterMade, the marketing agency, I was for the time being, talking to clients, doing the work myself. And then very quickly had the realization, like, I need to be building this business, not building up clients' businesses. And so I had to hire someone who is better than me at building clients' businesses. And you can fill in the blank there. It could be doing design for clients' businesses, whatever it is. But so long as I was in the driver's seat of client work, there wasn't enough time and attention being spent on the business itself, the agency itself, and scaling it. So I think that's the first common stumbling point that most people, or many people, don't escape. And sometimes they don't escape it because they don't want to. Like, I think I've talked to a lot of folks who love that work still, and so it's and there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's just like there comes a point when you almost have to make a decision or decide not to decide, which ultimately means it's not going to, you'll go to a certain point and then probably not push past. So that's the first one. The second one, I think, is really around understanding how to run a business financially, right? And then being willing to manage against that. And that latter piece is kind of like a big gotcha, right? Because it's one thing to know how to read a P&L and know how to, run a solid ops team and project management, just kind of like have a good stable foundation underneath you. But then the willingness to manage against that oftentimes comes with a lot of discomfort, and uncomfortable decisions have to be made at times. And I mean, the nature of an agency business is ultimately we're reselling other people's time. Whether you're value-based pricing or not, at the end of the day, you're paying somebody one thing, you're charging something else for it to the client, regardless of the pricing model. And so there has to be some amount of management in maintaining those margins. And I think that's a big kind of sticking point for a lot of businesses where they're just not willing to do that. And again, that comes down, I think this is another place where I've been a little bit too brash in the past. I don't think there's anything wrong with not managing that. If some people, it just depends on like your goals, right? My goals were to run a highly profitable agency and unlock the lifestyle that I wanted while, providing a good place to work. But that didn't mean employing people when the business couldn't afford to, right? It meant employing the right amount of people for the business. And so that came along with a bunch of hard decisions, and we've certainly had to scale the team down over the years and scale it back up and scale it back down. And it's this ping pong game that isn't always fun, but is necessary based on those goals.
Yeah, I really like what you said about intent, because I like intent to operate as a business versus intent to just like have a passion. Like, making that decision at any point of running an agency, I think, is really important. Like, we decided to pivot from like just purely a love of doing the work and solving problems to trying to operate consistently as a business, because like we do want to grow. We want to grow our offering to clients. We actually think we have a lot to offer. So I think we're trying to protect the asset by operating like a business in that way. So it's really great to hear, like, it is a choice that agency owners and operators need to make. There's one thing you did mention earlier on, just about pricing, like pricing being a big thing to focus on, or reverse engineering the lifestyle you want. And I feel like it starts with pricing. Like, can you give us anything about that perspective?
Sure. I mean, pricing is, I don't want to say everything, but it's a lot of things because of how much is downstream from pricing, right? Like, pricing is going to dictate how many clients you have. So imagine somebody is trying to build an agency and get it to, well, let's pick an even number, like $100,000 a month in revenue. Asterisks there, because I hate talking about revenue, but we'll use it for the sake of a pricing conversation, as opposed to profit. So, you could have 10 clients a month at $10,000 a month per client and get to that number, right? Or you could have triple that number at a lower price point. And so in theory, both of those price points get you the same result, but it's a very different business that you're managing. And it's also a very different client base that you're managing. And then it's also a very different marketing engine to acquire either of those types of clients. And so while it may seem a bit arbitrary in the beginning, like, oh, higher price, good, lower price, bad, or higher price, hard to get clients, lower price, easier to get clients, right? Like you could kind of jump to some quick conclusions, but it really does have a massive, massive impact on the type of business that's being built. And some of those are better for certain types of founders than others, right? Like MatterMade, I'll give you a personal story here. So MatterMade, I think I've said enough times on a podcast, so I won't harp on it, but like we started at $2,500 a month. We grew our price to $45,000 a month in our peak. And we've since come back down. And I think now somewhere in the 10 to 15K a month is like the starting point. When we had our price really, really high at $45,000 a month as our baseline, we ran into the situation where expectations were so high. It was like, and it wasn't that we weren't delivering. It was just like, it was so high and we were the biggest line item on their P&L in the marketing org. We always had a target on our back. And so even if we were delivering against expectations for what they hired us for, they're like, yeah, but man, 45K, like what else could we be doing with that budget? And so we set ourselves up to have churn even in the event that we were performing to expectations or exceeding expectations, just because it like fundamentally broke people's brains that there would be that much line item to one agency. And I think that was like, that makes sense. It's reasonable that someone would think about it that way. And so we purposefully decided, we want to be the type of agency that exceeds expectations without a target on our back so that we can be a long-term partner. Because the longer we're with a client, A, it means there's less pressure on us to do marketing, which B then means we have more budget to spend on retention, which C means we have to spend less on marketing. So it's this kind of like virtuous cycle. And we went from there were a lot of other changes we made, but in doing so, we went from an average lifetime of between 7 and 8 months for a client to our average lifetime is a little over 2.5 years. So, yeah. And it took us, a number of years to get there, but it made the business much more enjoyable to run, own, work at, all the things.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a great piece of insight. I think a lot of people fall into that trap of just like, we need to just continuously raise our prices to be optimally hitting whatever the target is. But yeah, like strategically, you might not want to be right at the top of the potential chopping block when budgets get challenged. Also, that like impact on long lifetime value is amazing. It's awesome. From a client perspective or a prospect perspective, switching lenses a little bit here. Agency profitability is a very difficult thing to gauge, but it is important. And I know, like, I'll give you an example. There's a lot of larger organizations. We just had a discussion recently. It was a government agency that was like, we probably wouldn't work with a company like yours because you're too small. And the risk is too high. But, there's a lot of organizations out there that are going through vendor selection, and profitability is a tough thing to gauge. But why, in your perspective, is it important that you're going with an agency that is highly profitable? And sometimes you hear these crazy stories of a project that getting sold for an amount of money that you're like, how is that even possible? Like, obviously there's a ton, it's a big brand, there's a ton of profitability built into that pricing, but like, why is it important for clients to be working with agencies that are highly profitable? What about their business model in that profitability model helps the work?
That's a question I've never been asked before. I really like the question. I mean, a profitable agency is just another word for a healthy business, right? And so an unprofitable agency is going to have all sorts of downstream effects, like probably means the team is bursting at the seams and it's probably frankly a sign that the agency isn't as well managed as a client would like it to be. And that's I say that with a giant asterisk. Like, I'm full well guilty of having both really profitable agencies and agencies that have lost money at times. So, no saint here, but I would also say that it's generally true that my agencies that have been more profitable have been the ones that were more calm, better run, more process in place, better infrastructure, better support, like all of these things. And the ones that weren't, we had our hair on fire because we were trying to figure out how to be more profitable. And so I think that alone is for, as far as clients should be concerned. If you have an agency that's been around for a number of years and has a track record of being healthy financially for a number of years, to me, that's a stable agency. And as a client, I want to work with a stable agency that knows what they're doing.
Yeah. And like, could you recommend to clients like how you would vet the agency health before signing? Like, what are some flags, green and red, from your perspective, if you were evaluating an agency?
I mean, truthfully, I would look at their employee churn as a pretty key indicator. And I would ask what their average employee tenure looks like.
Good question.
You know, like, and I think that's a pretty common client gripe, but I don't know how much due diligence they actually do on that. Like, LinkedIn's a pretty easy way to get a pulse on that. You know, again, and I need to knock on wood here, but I've been really grateful the team at MatterMade, like that, everybody has been there for after our big change, which came in like 2021, 2022. Ever since we've rebuilt out of that state, and I'm not taking any credit for this. My team has done all the rebuilding, and they're really talented and great at what they do. But that team has all stuck around, right? There's been essentially no churn. And I've had other agencies where it's been a fucking shit show, hot swapping seats, and we hire someone we think is going to be great. Oh crap, like the thing that they seem to be great at, they're actually not, or they're great at that thing, but some other thing we didn't notice in the process is just like a huge problem. So I think you can learn a lot about an agency by checking out their LinkedIn and seeing how long people have been on the team, or flat out asking them for, like, show me how many years each person on our team has been at your company. And for people who have been there less than a year, I would want to hear a exciting story about why they've been there for less than a year. Like, oh, we grew and, they're really talented. We're excited to have them on. That's a totally fine answer. But there are other answers that I might like turn into red flags, for example.
Yeah, that's great advice. There's profit and then there's growth. What does real scale look like?
There's profit and then there's growth. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly the hamster wheel of revenue. I think this comes back to what is an agency's goal or purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, even more than that, like, what's the owner's goal and purpose? There are a lot of agencies out there where the owner's goal and purpose is, I want to, have a huge team. I want to be able to tell people I run a $10 million a year agency and not qualify what that actually means. And, that $10 million a year agency might do $1 million in profit, but there could also be a $3 million a year agency or a $2 million a year agency that also does $1 million in profit, with a much, much smaller team. So I think it really depends on the owner's goals ultimately, as far as what scale means. Because to me, personally, scale means reliably being able to produce $2 to $3 million a year in profit.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I've been there, sometimes I haven't been there. Most recently, I haven't been there, right? So that's my scale to me. It has nothing to do with the number of team members. It has nothing to do with the amount of revenue. And the other thing, scale to me, is about durability. I think that's something I've learned the hard way over the years, is it's one thing to flash, like, flash in the pan up to, which is what I would consider my high mark, was a flash in the pan. I got there and then I couldn't hold on to it. And it was a flash in the pan for multiple reasons that were within my control and reasons that weren't. But ultimately I could have better managed for a longer term vision around stability and durability of profit and revenue. So I think scale is a loaded word, right? Most people think headcount and revenue. I think about it a little differently.
I definitely like that take. I mean, Marcello and I fully subscribe to that. If you can keep a lean team and keep the financial growth and profitability in check, then it's no different than a 5-person team to a 15-person team, right? So
totally.
There's a topic that we always come back to when we're talking about positioning, pricing, and sales, and it's this idea of niching down. So like you've niched your own business as far as I can understand. Like you're very focused on agencies, right? Like for the financial side, right? Can you talk a bit about niching down and like why people shy away from it?
Yeah, and I would even say I'm still a beginner at niching down. I think I've made some improvements recently, but I'm still like, I would look to other people. I'll give you some examples. So when I started MatterMade, in theory, you could say that venture-backed SaaS between series at the time when we launched, it was like seed to series A or series B. And then that became series B to series D. And so like that is kind of a niche. But it's still pretty wide, right? It's like, is it biotech?
Yeah,
is it MarTech? Like, what is it? So I would argue that the fullest form of niching down would be, we work with North American venture-backed SaaS between series B and series D in biotech. That's not what we do, but I'm just saying like that would be an example of properly niching down, and just being super, super good at it. I didn't have the gumption to plant a flag like that. And so we stayed horizontal within SaaS. That business did. But then I saw a buddy who I really respect. He was or is in the recruiting industry and has a recruiting firm. And they were kind of the same, right? Like VC backed people with money. We recruit for them. And then he went through this like boot camp thing, and they were talking about niching down. He's like, man, I've got a couple clients in CPG, and I really like that space. I'm thinking about it. I don't know. It's kind of scary. Anyway, fast forward, he decides to niche down into CPG companies specifically, and like not small, but like fast growing, kind of like think AG1 type of consumer packaged good.
Got it.
And man, it took maybe 6 months for that to stick. But once he got in there, his business has just absolutely skyrocketed, and like now he's the guy. If you're looking for a recruiting firm and you're a CPG company, like he's one of the top firms. And that was, the pivot happened maybe a year and a half ago. So it really did. I mean, in the scheme of business, that's yesterday. So I see someone like that, and like that is niching. So now I'm trying to emulate that myself, right? Where when we launched Profit Labs, the accounting firm, I was originally like, oh, we're going to be agencies, generally speaking. And then most of our initial client base came from marketing and design agencies, because that was a lot of my audience on LinkedIn. But then once we shook that tree and I started having conversations with people who weren't already like familiar with me, I learned that a lot of the marketing and design agencies out there, they're already like generally tech savvy, and they're already generally like think they have a handle on this, and they may already have a handle on this. And there's also a long tail of a lot of smaller marketing and design agencies out there. And I just kept having sales calls with like teams that were too small to justify our cost, and also like kind of thought they had it on their own. And so like that sucks to sell into. So over the last 2 well, no, it hasn't been 2 years. Over the last year and a half, now I'm starting to focus on like, actually, I think we're just going to go after the recruiting vertical because those clients are awesome. They have a more complex business than marketing design agencies, and they generally get to a higher revenue watermark a lot faster than marketing design agencies. So, and in doing so, like, especially now that I've launched this software product for recruiting and staffing firms, called Collected, now it's like, okay, I'm just vertically going to integrate into that ecosystem of recruiting and staffing firms. When I go to a conference, if I'm having a conversation with someone and they're like, oh man, profitability is so hard, I can go like, oh, let's unpack that. What do you mean? You know, is it your accounts receivable is a nightmare? Great. And like, you know, you're having a hard time managing commissions. Is it more ops related? I'll talk to you about Collected, right? Oh, you're having a problem with margin. Oh, okay. I'll talk to you about Profit Labs. And so every marketing dollar I spend has, you know, a 50% higher chance of hitting because there's two surfaces I can spread it out across. So I don't know, maybe being spread thin I'm still trying to learn the lesson that I should be focused on a thing, not things. And candidly, like, I am very aggressively cutting things that take my bandwidth right now. So TBD on how that all shakes out. But so it's always a work in progress. I'm still learning a bunch and learning the hard way still a bunch.
Nice. So it's like you've niched down on the multiple things. You've got like a diversity of things.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Not
within
all
the same niche.
one umbrella.
Mostly. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
I mean, you seem to like a lot of the creative businesses. It sounds like you've been very focused on long-term value and obviously partnership. What does a real agency client partnership look like when it's working well? Sorry, when it's working well.
Yeah. I'll think to MatterMade is a good example here because we've run the gamut, right? From what I'd say was unhealthy client relationships when it was 7-8 month average tenure to now very healthy relationships. And I think it comes down to mutual respect and when there's mutual respect, both teams are willing to make allowances for each other that they wouldn't otherwise make if there wasn't mutual respect, right? So for example, if you're a VP of marketing and you're going into a board meeting and suddenly like a question comes up or something, like you're prepping for the board meeting and you need something from your agency and you've been an absolute asshole to your agency for the past year, sure, like somebody on that team is going to get you what you need, but man, like, is everybody going to go all hands on deck and like actually question what they're putting on a slide for you and really think it through deeply and like question even their own assumptions before they ship it over to you? Or are they just going to like go pull the number and hand it over to you and make it look pretty? I don't know. You know, some teams would handle that differently. I wouldn't want to bet though that I would be getting the best result if I'd been treated like shit leading up to that. And so when there is mutual respect though, like I know that the team at MatterMade, like those guys bend over backwards when they get a request from a client because they get so much care and respect throughout the year from the clients. And, you know, vice versa, it goes two ways, right? So because the client gets that level of treatment and that level of care from the team, then when they have a down month or a metric comes back and like the needle wasn't moved as far as the exec wanted it to be moved, instead of going, well, like, guys, this doesn't look good, you know, and it's like a stick mentality. It's like, hey, what went wrong here together? Like we've been in the soup together for a while. Like, help us understand this. And then there's just it's a collaboration as opposed to like a constant, should we fire you? Like, are you working hard enough? So I don't know. That was a bunch of rambling about that, but I think you can feel it.
That was great.
Pretty spot on. Yeah. I mean, it's just human nature. Like if the client's easy to work with, then it's more likely that they'll get a disproportionate share of attention and care. Like that makes sense. You can feel it when it's happening too. Your story resonated deeply with me. I'll just tell you that. It's true.
All right. Well, let's. I think we're ready to close it off. But what's one hard truth uh, for agency owners, and one piece of encouragement that you would give?
I'll try. I'm going to give something I've never said before. The hard truth, I think, is, and maybe these are one and the same. So that's probably the answer to both questions. I think it's really easy as an agency owner. There's tons of content creators out there who are saying like, this is the way to do it. Do it this way. If you're not doing it this way, you're a fucking idiot or whatever. And I don't think there is a right way to do it. Like, I think the hard truth and the word of encouragement is the right way to do it is the way that you do it, if it works for you. And if it, if that enables the lifestyle you want and you're able to treat people fairly, or actually, I shouldn't even say treat people fairly. If you're able to run a business that's in line with your values as a person and feel good about that business, and that in the process of running that business that you feel good about and is in alignment with your values, it enables you to live the life that you want to live, like that is the right way to do it. So I think that's both the hard truth and the word of encouragement.
Yeah, that was great. That's a nice alternative to the TikTok media that we all see all the time.
And dude, honestly, the reason I said that just then is because I've started to feel really shitty about a lot of the content I've put out over the years, because my content has been so like 1 or a 0, right? It's black or white. It's, this worked for me, therefore it should work for everyone else. And frankly, I think a lot of the stuff that worked for me doesn't work anymore for other people. And a lot of the stuff that worked for me, I think I was younger and naive, and I still probably will think this about myself 5 years from now when I'm reflecting on today, but I don't think that I handled things the best way over the years. And I wish I was more calm and cautious about being in alignment with values and these sorts of things, and something I'm trying to course correct now. So that's why I say that, is like, I think there are a lot of people out there who maybe are creating content and look like they're in a position of, I did this right once or twice, and therefore like anything I touch is going to be golden. And it's just not true. So
yeah, that's a great piece of feedback. Thanks for sharing that. It's all of this is just much more dynamic than it's ever portrayed, right? Like the people are different, the clients are different, the regional differences. It's a great piece of feedback. Simon, any closing thoughts?
No notes. I mean, I think the point about not buying social media, especially business social media, and like all these tips and tricks and things like that, taking them at face value, I feel like that's a good closer.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that too. Eli, where can people find you?
you can find me on LinkedIn. It's probably the easiest place. That's where I spend too much time.
So I was looking at your adventurous CV recently, and I was like, that's just such a great idea to put something like that together. Also, very impressed.
I need to
We'll
update
have to
it.
talk more about that.
It turns out when you have kids, it's really hard to have things to update.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, oh, I want to do that too. And then I was like, wait, the last 4 years, it's been very spotty with 2 toddlers.
I'm pretty sure the last date on that thing is like 2014 or something. I think it fell off a cliff pretty precipitously. Thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure
Thanks,
to chat with you. And yeah, let's keep it up.
Awesome. All right. Take it easy, guys.
See ya.